The Golden State Warriors hope to improve the roster meaningfully this summer, but doing that without Jonathan Kuminga as a trade chip is going to prove difficult. Bobby Marks of ESPN predicted on Saturday, June 28, that Golden State would extend Kuminga the $7.9 million qualifying offer that allows them to retain his restricted free agent rights. Or, in other words, match any offer another franchise makes to the versatile wing player this offseason. What happens next could be a waiting game. With Brooklyn as the only team that can offer a starting salary of $20 million or more, Golden State would have the right to match. The best option could be both sides exploring a sign-and trade, Marks wrote. The decision with Kuminga plays a role in what flexibility Golden State has in finding a starting center. However, Bleacher Report's Dan Favale wrote Sunday that an obscure NBA guideline is going to make a sign-and-trade exceedingly difficult, which probably means Kuminga ends up playing his fifth year in the league, and potentially several seasons beyond, in a Warriors uniform. Base year compensation gymnastics complicate any sign-and-trade possibilities unless the Nets are involved. Kuminga will essentially count as only 50% of his new salary to the Warriors, yet his next team has to math out deals to account for the full weight of his new price point, Favale wrote. Re-signing him to preserve the asset and salary slot and figuring out the rest later is Golden State's best bet. This approach gets risky if Kuminga fields a ridiculous offer sheet with an average annual value that could age poorly, but Brooklyn is the lone potential suitor who has the spending power to inflict that kind of discomfort. Warriors can match any offer to Jonathan Kuminga, revisit a trade ahead of NBA's February deadline. That isn't the ideal outcome for Golden State, as head coach Steve Kerr benched Kuminga down the stretch of the regular season and played him sparingly in round one of the playoffs against the Houston Rockets. An injury to Stephen Curry in Game 1 of Round 2 against the Minnesota Timberwolves forced Kerr's hand, and Kuminga responded to the challenge by averaging nearly 21 points per game, despite just a 7-point performance over just 13 minutes played in the opening contest. Still, none of that changes the reality that Kuminga's most effective style of play doesn't fit seamlessly with how Kerr wants the offense to run. It also doesn't change Jimmy Butler's presence on the roster for at least the next 2 years, which mitigates the minutes available to Kuminga. But despite the issues of fit and need, a limited free agent market for Kuminga puts the Warriors in a good position to keep him on the roster until at least next February's trade deadline, when flipping him may make more sense and prove less complicated/more lucrative. That bodes well for the Warriors, keeping him at a palatable number, attempting to integrate him into the Jimmy Butler era, and then revisiting his fit and market value closer to February's trade deadline, Favale continued. Jonathan Kuminga interested in playing elsewhere than Golden State. Kuminga is uncertain about a potential return to the Warriors in his age 23 season based on his recent comments. Golden State drafted him number 7 overall in 2021 and paid him $25 million over the life of his 4-year rookie contract. Tim Kawakami spoke with Warriors general manager Mike Dunleavy for a piece that ran on June 27 in the San Francisco Standard, and Kuminga was a central topic of conversation. He's a guy who believes in himself, wants to see what he can do. I think ultimately if we're able to bring him back, we see a path for him to be able to do some of those things here, Dunleavy said of Kuminga. I think for him, experiencing free agency, kind of being on the market, for him to go through that, I think there's an appeal to it. By not doing an extension last year, he kind of earned that right. Unfortunately for Kuminga, most teams around the league don't have salary cap space, so the timing of his free agency is working against him. The Golden State Warriors are back on the hunt. Following a second-round playoff exit, the front office is reportedly back at work, and 2 names are already heating up in trade talks. According to Brett Siegel, the Warriors have discussed both Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Herb Jones in recent days. Neither would qualify as a superstar, but both check the boxes Golden State seems to be targeting: perimeter defense, versatility, and playoff poise. Have heard Herb Jones and Nickeil Alexander-Walker talk for Golden State within last couple of days, Siegel posted. Warriors certainly looking for upgrades in free agency this week and potentially on trade market if the price is right. Warriors prioritize elite perimeter D. This isn't just a one-off report. NBCS's Monty Poole noted the same day that the Warriors are expected to search for an elite perimeter defender. It couldn't have been more direct. Golden State wants someone who can lock down scorers, allow Stephen Curry to roam off ball, and pair seamlessly with Draymond Green's disrupt and recover style. What Herb Jones and NAW bring. Jones, a first-team all-defensive selection in 2024, may be available due to the New Orleans Pelicans' roster depth. He played only 20 games last season but still averaged 10.3 points and 1.9 steals per game. His three-point shooting dipped, but a move to Golden State, surrounded by floor spacers like Curry and Buddy Hield, could help unlock more of his offensive game. Meanwhile, Alexander Walker played all 82 games last season for the Minnesota Timberwolves, averaging 9.4 points on 43.8% shooting, 38.1% from three, while serving as a reliable two-way guard. The 6'5" Canadian is reportedly drawing interest from at least 4 teams, per Mark Stein, and could command a contract around the $14.1 million non-taxpayer mid-level exception. Some execs view him as a Derek White-type piece for contenders: plug-and-play defense, low-maintenance offense, and postseason toughness. Warriors have room to maneuver. The Kevin Durant reunion didn't happen, but the Jimmy Butler deal did, and it changed everything. Golden State surged from the 11th seed to a second-round playoff run, with Butler injecting the kind of edge and urgency the team had been missing. Now, the front office still has room to maneuver. If the right price surfaces for either Jones or Alexander Walker, Golden State could pounce. With free agency opening June 30th and the roster still in flux, this may only be the beginning. The Golden State Warriors were caught sleeping and missing out on Lonzo Ball as an off-season trade target, with a former second overall pick heading to the Cleveland Cavaliers on Saturday in a deal that lands the Chicago Bulls' young wing Isaac Okoro. But even though they missed out on Ball, the trade could still wind up working in the Warriors' favor if they are to show interest in reuniting with a former guard entering free agency. The Warriors could be a fit for Cavs guard Ty Jerome. Ball's arrival in Cleveland almost certainly spells the end for Ty Jerome, with the trade signaling the wide-held assumption that the Cavaliers won't be able to retain the 27-year-old after a breakout season. NBA insider Jake Fisher of the Stein Line reported on Saturday that the move to acquire Ball is a signal that Cleveland anticipates losing Ty Jerome in free agency. While there's been no strong reporting of Golden State being interested in a Jerome reunion, ESPN front office insider Bobby Marks did list the 6'5" guard as a fit for the franchise in his free agency previews. It would make some sense given the Warriors don't particularly have a backup point guard to Stephen Curry right now, having spent the last few months of the season essentially letting Jimmy Butler run the second unit as a point forward. Getting another ball handler who can create and shoot efficiently from distance would be very useful, with Jerome coming off a year where he finished third in Sixth Man of the Year and averaged 12.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 3.4 assists on 51.6% shooting from the floor, and an incredibly impressive 43.9% from three-point range. Fisher does note that Jerome is said to be seeking a deal that starts at the full mid-level exception, $14.1 million. That's likely to price him outside Golden State's price range, but it could be possible depending on what the franchise does with restricted free agent Jonathan Kuminga. Jerome is seen as the one that got away for the Warriors, having played 1 year in the Bay on a two-way contract in 2022-23. He made an impact in averaging 18.1 minutes across 45 games for the franchise, averaging 6.9 points, 1.7 rebounds, and 3.0 assists on 48.8% shooting from the floor and 38.9% from three-point range. Golden State did tender a qualifying offer to Jerome in the 2023 offseason, but they chose not to match Cleveland's 2-year, $5 million contract in a decision they could now look to reverse in free agency 2 years on.